Welcome back to the Movement Prescription Podcast. After quite a long hiatus, Hussein, Susie and I have decided to come back for another series. Thanks for all the messages we've received in our absence. We really appreciate the positive feedback and it's definitely inspired us to keep giving some more. To kick us off with this new series, I have interviewed Dr. James Carvell. James is a GP and a lifestyle medic in the southeast of England and a huge movement enthusiast. James also suffers from multiple sclerosis and since his diagnosis has become an advocate for people living with the disease. He set up a community interest company called Monkey Socks, which raises money for MS charities. And he also has a podcast called Never Matched, which covers things like running a business, living with MS, and tips for healthier living. It was really interesting to dive into some of the details around physical activity and multiple sclerosis. It's not something I knew much about, and James offered a really enlightening conversation, highlighting both the physical and the mental benefits from continuing to be active with a diagnosis like MS. So I hope you enjoy, and please provide some feedback. We love to hear from you. Hi, James. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, Callum. I'm really excited to be on the podcast. Yeah, I'm well. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Look, we're really forward to kind of hearing a bit about you and your journey. I wonder if a kind of a good place to start is by telling me a little bit about you.
Gosh, I'm trying to think about where I start. From kind of an activity point of view, I've always enjoyed my sport.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of played into kind of every part of my journey so far. Even from kind of graduating from med school and seeing all these anaesthetists in their lycra and wanting to be like them and active cycling to work and things like that. So I went, did my anaesthetics and then shifted to general practice. And
a good move, I'd say, James.
Yeah. I'm loving it. I'm a GP in Twickenham. Really love talking to patients. We've set up a lifestyle clinic there and loving the patients.
Oh, cool. So you grew up quite active, did you? It sounds like you played lots of sports as a kid growing up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I tried to do a bit of everything. Kind of enjoyed my football, my rugby.
Yeah,
I was quite good at those two, and then enjoyed cricket. But deep down, I think I knew I wasn't really that good. But still enjoyed playing it, and yeah, I've tried to carry that forward, kind of going through.
Yeah. That sounds a lot like me, James. I think I'm exceptionally competitive, but kind of deep down know that the competitive edge will only get me so far, hiding a lack of talent. So.
Yeah, we got found out towards the end. Yeah.
There's only so far you can go. Yeah. Oh, bro. So GP in Twickenham, it's really amazing that you kind of managed to try to integrate some of that physical activity into your work. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today was kind of really about your personal journey and how that kind of interacts with your professional one in many ways. And so in 2016, you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
I was, yes.
It would be really interesting if you'd be willing to, I know it's sometimes hard because these things can be really emotive, but would you be willing to share that process, what happened and how's that impacted you, but also your ability to be active and your day-to-day life?
Yeah, of course. I'm very happy to share. It was obviously a huge thing to go through and try to understand and work through in my mind. I think really the first thing was that there was a lot of unexplained things for me. But we talked about me enjoying rugby. I was playing kind of like rugby sevens and I was struggling with my vision to actually even see the ball to catch and I was dropping things a lot more than I used to do. When I was running, I was tripping on curbs or just really on flat roads. And even walking up kind of stairs at work. I remember being at Charing Cross Hospital and walking up the stairs and my balance was just so off. And I think really I didn't know what was going on. And I knew there was something, but I didn't know what was going on. And it's quite frustrating as a doctor. We're supposed to know what's going on. We're supposed to know the answers to these things. And it took a really long time for me to be diagnosed with MS. We went through, I went to the opticians. I was checked for diabetes. I had ECGs, echoes. I had it all to try to find out what was going on. And then eventually when I did see a neurologist, everything just clicked. And like that, within days, I was diagnosed with MS. It was, honestly, it took me a bit of time to get used to the diagnosis. But actually, throughout all of that, the thing that did help me was exercise. Looking back on it now, the thing that got me through it was staying active. And that's something that I'd always done, always throughout. And even now, I could talk to you about this morning. I woke up, my right leg was so heavy and noticeably different to my left, which I've always talked about. But I've been for a swim, and I wouldn't be able to notice the difference right now. And that's what I try to get across to patients is that it does make a difference.
That's amazing. I suppose, or maybe pick your brains on that difference. In that process of diagnosis, that long process, it's really interesting. Your example was kind of a physical one. Did you find that being active during that process was a real psychological help as well?
Yeah, completely. I'm sure that everyone can kind of agree with this as well, that when they exercise, they feel better afterwards mentally. For me, kind of being physically active certainly helps me kind of manage the day better. I'm sure if you spoke to my wife, she'd say I'm less grumpy once I've exercised. I think it's that kind of component to it is key to me. Yeah.
And during that process of being diagnosed, you mentioned the impact that a lot of the symptoms were having on your ability to be active. Whether it was tripping on curbs or not able to have the vision you once had during sport. Rugby was the example you gave. But how did you navigate the symptoms with being active and being safe?
Do you know what? I brought it back a bit. I think, we talked about how right at the beginning, our keenness, eventually was found out that we couldn't quite make it to the top. And I think I just needed to accept that you don't always have to, do everything to the max. You can still exercise and not have to pass out after exercising. So I brought it back a bit. That brought back my symptoms a bit. I think I've worked out that when I get very hot during exercise, my symptoms are actually worse. So I suppose having that knowledge that maybe when I push it too hard, I get too hot, my symptoms are brought out in me. But that's really a personal thing. I think really psychologically, I know that I need to not push as hard for certain things or push for shorter periods of time.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. To kind of two things you mentioned, I want to pick up on. The first is about the way that we view physical activity. I think, I was actually talking to someone earlier about how binary we are in how we view it. It's either something that we do or we don't do, or we cycle to work or we don't cycle to work, as opposed to driving halfway and cycling a bit, or having gradients of what's possible. And your example there of just kind of pulling in the boundaries a bit's a really kind of pertinent one for me from the back of conversations today, but also a really interesting example of how we can do that. Presumably you see that or in your clinical work, but are you able to kind of coach people through those gradients of physical activity and use your personal example in that?
Yeah, that's one thing, isn't it? I think we need to, it's not all or nothing, is it? There's a spectrum, and it's graded, and it's very personal to each patient, and very specific to them as to what they can do. And certainly I think that's where us as GPs is we're really privileged and able to just speak to individual patients, suggest something personal to them that they are able to do, and that's the whole motivational interviewing thing, isn't it? Getting them to come up with the ideas. That's the most personal way of doing things.
Yeah, no, for sure. The other thing I wanted to pick up on, and Joe, I really know very much about MS and physical activity, which is why it's so interesting to have this conversation. But one of the things I did a question I did have for you was about heat and MS, because one of the things that can make MS symptoms worse is heat, and you kind of alluded to that with physical activity. I think it's maybe a really interesting segue. Could you kind of possibly tell me a bit more about the role of physical activity in MS generally? I imagine it's really kind of complex, given that some is good, but too much or too much heat might make it symptoms worse.
So yes, the heat does affect things. But I think just knowing that for people with MS, then fine. There are things you can do. People can still exercise with MS and just have an awareness that they need to not get too hot doing it. There are cooling vests. There is swimming. There's lots of things that can keep your body cool whilst exercising. And I think people with MS, there are kind of barriers to exercise, but I think you can get around them. There are lots of things we can do. I just say to people that kind of any movement is good movement. Any activity is good. It doesn't matter how you do it, what you do, just do it. So for those with MS, I suppose I've touched on it with heat. I have an infusion once a month, and it's a really good way of kind of meeting other people with MS and talking to them about it. Some people experience the same symptoms as me in the freezing cold. And I think first thing is that every person with MS is different. And that's why it's important to talk about them, talk to them about their symptoms and how they're affected day to day. But I suppose we always talk about how there are very few contraindications to exercising, and I think it's just about finding what's right for you. People with MS, I think fatigue is a really big thing that people with MS will talk about, and that's not just that I'm tired. That's like how you feel after doing really intense exercise. Or often people talk about, I feel like I've run a marathon. Your legs are heavy, arms are heavy. You just want to lie down. People with MS, that kind of fatigue symptoms, they're dealing with that quite a lot more than than others would experience.
Yeah, I was going to ask about barriers, and fatigue's a really interesting one. How would you advise someone with MS that's struggling with fatigue to be more active? And I mean, what kind of advice might you give there?
I'm hoping that I can. I don't know. That's where using my own kind of personal experience is quite helpful.
Yeah,
and the science backs it up as well. And I know that people feel fatigued, but I honestly know that if you exercise, you will feel less fatigued. It sounds contradictory, but honestly, people will feel their symptoms get better if they exercise.
Yeah.
And like looking at it from a science point of view, we know that exercise reduces inflammation. MS is an inflammatory condition. I've even gone down kind of like a rabbit hole of looking. I have no neuroscience background or anything like that, but I've gone into like neurotrophins and cellular repair mechanisms, and exercise benefits all these areas. Chronic inflammatory conditions like MS will reduce your ability to repair neurologically. So exercise is key from my side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a kind of counteracting the process in some ways.
Yeah.
I think things like fatigue and pain I find really interesting, because often, for example, in chronic pain, we know that being more active will help the pain, but actually the pain itself is the barrier to being active, and it kind of can create a vicious cycle. So finding ways to kind of break that cycle, and actually your story is a really pertinent one that and hopefully people listening can use to advocate for the power of physical activity to people that might come in with MS and struggling with fatigue.
I think from my side of things, I think, just anything that you can do is better than doing nothing. And it doesn't have to be running marathons. It doesn't have to be doing ultras or this. You can, like you mentioned, you can drive for a bit and then cycle for a bit to work, or get the bus and cycle a bit. I'm quite a big advocate for kind of your active commute, I think, or fitting physical activity into your daily routine.
I think that's a really important point about, it doesn't have to be extreme, but also having role models is important and showing what's possible. And I know that you do triathlons. So I think that's as you kind of stand as a really amazing role model of what can be achieved with MS and the symptoms that you suffer with.
I want to be that role model. I want people to, firstly, when they're first diagnosed with MS, I want them to see someone that's managing their symptoms and show them that it's not the end of the world. It's not something that will mean that you can't do what you want to do. There's just some adaptations that you have to make. And if we as doctors can inspire that to people, then I think we're doing a good job.
Yeah. Talking of those adaptations, you mentioned some earlier. I just kind of pull them out. One is you talked about kind of cooling vests can be quite helpful if heat's an issue. Are they easy to get hold of, James?
You can get them on Amazon. Yeah, so they cover the torso. Even you can just get a vest that has ice packs that you put into them. And some people say they don't work. Some people say they do. But it's something worthwhile, or even like swimming to help dissipate that heat. I think things like swimming are really good.
Interesting. So there's kind of the activity and then the intensity of the activity you mentioned as well as an adaptation. Any other kind of specific adaptations that you're aware of for people suffering MS?
The most common things: fatigue, physical disability, bladder and bowel symptoms, and balance problems. I think that kind of encompasses your problems that people with MS will feel day to day. And if you can find a physical activity that is a bit more open to these disabilities, then that's helpful. Which is why I think swimming is quite good. It's more of a weightless activity. It allows you to kind of adjust that intensity, and kind of do as much or little as you want.
Yeah. And balance is possibly, once you're in the water, then balance is less relevant. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just
Exactly. I think so. And the kind of repercussions of losing your balance are lesser in the water.
Yeah. Interesting. And what about is that kind of presumably that's open water swimming as well as in pools, James?
Oh gosh, I love open water swimming.
Yeah.
If we can get patients open water swimming, that's great. I've managed to get my mum open water swimming.
Oh, amazing!
She's getting close to 80. Oh, I shouldn't say she might not want me to say that. But she's open water swimming in Clacton, and she absolutely loves it.
Yeah. Oh well, I'm sure she'll listen. You'll be told off, James. James's mum, please go light on him. Yeah. One of the things that you've done, which is amazing, is set up this company called Monkey Socks.
Yeah, so and completely related to what we've been talking about. So Monkey Socks is kind of a social enterprise that my wife and I have set up, where we sell sports socks. They're mismatched sports socks to represent the imbalance in symptoms that people with multiple sclerosis feel day to day, with the intention of getting people active. We donate 50% of our profits to multiple sclerosis charities from the sale of our sports socks, and hopefully the fact that they are sports socks, we're trying to show and get people talking about being active, talking about the reason they're wearing odd socks, and doing what we can.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept, and credit to you. If I'm going to go buy myself a pair of Monkey Socks, just jump on Google, put Monkey Socks with an X.
Yes, monkey socks with an X. Yeah, do it.
James, if one of the challenges in primary care and in all health professionals is time. And having long conversations about physical activity is realistically few and far between. Are there any, you mentioned MS Charities, it just made me think, could you recommend any resources or signposts that just we can be aware of if we want to send patients to get more information? Where could we send them?
Yeah, really good point. I think so. So we support 3 charities in the UK. So the MS Society, which is probably the one that people know about. There's the MS Trust and MS UK. They're probably the 3 biggest. All their websites, if you just type into Google MS Society, MS Trust, MS UK, their websites are great. They're honestly really easy to use and loads of really good information, especially for if we have someone that's newly diagnosed that's probably struggling with the diagnosis. I think sending them to the Charities website is a really good place to start, or sending them the Monkey Socks website, and I'd be very happy to talk to them.
Cool. Oh, well, that's kind of you. We'll do that. Is there information on the charity websites or even on Monkey Socks about being active in MS?
Yeah, there really is, and I think it's pretty global. That everyone is on the same page talking about how physical activity helps those with MS. And I was before this podcast, I was looking up from BSLM. I think it's Dr Sykes. He's got an activity kind of module on there, and he talks about so much good stuff and about how physical inactivity is linked to 1 in 6 deaths in the UK. Talking about how balance and strength are so important in older life, which we know. This is what people with MS really struggle with. They struggle with their balance. They struggle with their strength, their mobility. As they get older, exercise is just as, if not more important to them. So if there's anything that they can be doing, we need to enable them to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, is stressing the balance, the strength, as well as the kind of the activity helping with symptoms. There's kind of a whole round effect. And then obviously there's the psychological impact of being active and the improvement in mental well-being that can have, particularly with someone that's facing the challenges of a long-term condition like MS.
Yeah, you summed it up really well. Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Yeah, credit to you. You're an amazing advocate, and you're in a unique position as a health professional and someone suffering with MS. And if there was one message that you could give to others with MS about physical activity, what would that be?
Gosh, I think I've mentioned it all the way along. I think any movement is good movement, and as long as you can keep it consistent. So I think the best way is if you can factor it into your daily routine. Just it again doesn't have to be to the extremes, but just factor in some movement into your daily routine. Keep it consistent, and I think you benefit from it.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, this is me ad-libbing. I'm not giving you any time to prep this one, but
let's go. Let's try it.
Yeah. if you're giving advice to a health professional who if there was one message you wanted the health professional to get across to that person that's just been newly diagnosed with MS, what would that message be? And it doesn't necessarily have to be physical activity pertinent initially, but maybe the second message could be a particular physical activity one.
I think so. From my side, all I had to go on was our medical textbooks, where you read about MS, and that got me quite down seeing about it. One thing I would say is that treatments for multiple sclerosis are new and developing every year, and there are some very good treatments at the moment. I think if I was told that, the best thing that my neurologist said to me, she said to me that the aim of what we want to do is to keep you as you are now. And when the uncertainty with being diagnosed with MS is probably the hardest thing, because there's such a range of symptoms that people can experience. You don't know. You don't know if you're going to be the worst end of the spectrum. You don't know how you're going to be affected. If someone could tell me that the aim of treatment, the aim of managing your symptoms is to keep you as you are today, I think that would be helpful. Or if not, even reverse some of the symptoms that you've got. And some are reversible. I know that it's kind of a stepwise reduction in ability, but there are some reversible features. I don't know if that really covered your question, Callum.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And the second part is about physical activity specifically, a kind of a physical activity specific message for the same person.
If they weren't already active, I would very much advise them to. It helps. So from a case study of me, and from lots of other research that's gone around, I know that physical activity will help the patient's symptoms. So the person with MS will benefit from being physically active.
That's a really good note to end on, I think. Really kind of powerful. And look, thanks so much for joining us. It's you've been really honest and open and candid, and we really appreciate that. And we hope that your journey can have a real impact and inspire others to move. So yeah, thanks for joining us, James. And hopefully some people get some monkey socks.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate the time to talk. I hope everyone got something from it. Thank you.
Pleasure. Cheers. Hi, it's Callum. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. We are so grateful to the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine for their support in producing these podcasts. And we wholeheartedly share their vision of transforming healthcare and levelling health inequalities through lifestyle medicine. If you want to find out more, please head to bslm.org.uk. Although catering for healthcare professionals, this podcast is for everyone. If you enjoyed it, please share it. And we love hearing from you, so do reach out. Thanks for listening.